All right. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. It's whew. So this morning we're going to be talking about the ice-free zones. And Jason, I see Jason Bryan has joined us this morning. Good morning, brother. Uh I don't know if you want to. Damn, you know what? I'm going to send you a text message real quick. Yeah, I know. Now we've got dead air. Let me just do this thing real quick since I see Jason there and there's a thing. So I want to shoot you something. Ooh, that is not what we're looking for at all. Okay. Okay, my apologies. The thing that just happened there is it occurred to me, you know, I've got a buddy that might want to talk about something this morning and I see him watching. Let me send him a text message. So, buddy, if you click on that link, you can pop on. It's going to ask you to download the Rumble app on your phone and sign in before you can do it. But if you want to play, then we can play. And I apologize for the feedback there. I will not make that mistake again. I think I know how that happened, and I will look out for that in the future. So this morning we're going to talk about the mayor. What is he? Mayor of Chicago? Yeah, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, uh, conducting an insurrection. I mean, here it is.
Aimed at reining in this out of control administration. The order establishes
Wait.
today.
Sorry about that. The clip started in the middle. We want to start
Today, we are signing an executive order aimed at reining in this out of control administration. The order establishes ice-free zones. That means that city property and unwilling private businesses will no longer serve as staging grounds for these raids. And today we are.
I see. So you have exclusive authority over over public property. So we the people, and that includes the citizens of Chicago, are being completely left bereft of choice with regard to the disposition of their public property. Right. The order apparently applies to things like city parking lots, which, city parks, places that would serve as a natural launching point for an operation like an ICE deployment. So Chicago City Mayor creates ice-free zones to block federal agents from city property. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson signed an executive order Monday prohibiting federal immigration agents from using city-owned property for immigration enforcement operations. Excuse me. As the Trump administration deploys National Guard troops to Illinois, Johnson established the ice-free zones, referring to U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement as part of his Protecting Chicago initiative, rejecting President Trump's crime crackdown and deportation rollout in the city. Today, we're signing an executive order. You heard the clip. I'm not going to bother reading that quote to you. As Chicago seeks to thwart ICE's deportation efforts, Johnson and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker filed a lawsuit Monday attempting to block the Trump administration from deploying National Guard troops to Illinois. Now, I've got this other clip of J.B. Pritzker, and, it's shared. I'm going to show you. This is shared by this cat, Brooklyn Dad Defiant, the notorious crackhead who notoriously pawned his children's toys on Christmas to buy crack cocaine. Because, let's be very clear, he is representative of the Democrat voter. But here's J.B. Pritzker, and hang on, before I show the clip, This crackhead says that Governor J.B. Pritzker throws down the gauntlet, says he's not going to play Trump's stupid reality game show begging for troops. Give us the federal funding Chicago needs. We're going to talk about federal funding in just a minute. I don't think this clip is the one he thinks it is.
So in the absence of significant federal coordination, we've gathered information from unauthorized patriotic officials inside the government and from well-sourced reporters about Donald Trump.
Unauthorized so-called patriotic supporters from inside the government. Okay. So J.B. Pritzker just confessed to conducting an espionage operation for the express purpose of interfering with the operations of the United States government. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's him on air. It was live on CNN, confessing to a very serious crime against the federal government. The conduct of, so you've got an elected Democrat conducting espionage operations against the U.S. government.
Trump's plan, which is to deploy armed military personnel to the streets of Chicago. I'm aware that the President of the United States likes to go on television and beg me to call and ask him for troops. I find this extraordinarily strange, as Chicago does not want troops on our streets. I also have experience asking the President for assistance, just to have the rug pulled out from underneath me when execution meets reality. I refuse to play
Yeah, I'm going to need an example. I'm going to need you just made a generic claim without giving an example, right? You're going to need to do better than that, Pritzker.
reality game show with Donald Trump again. What I want are the federal dollars that have been promised to Illinois and Chicago for violence prevention programs that have proven to work. That is money that Illinois taxpayers send to the federal government, and it's an insult to any and every citizen to suggest that any governor should have to beg the president of any political party for resources owed their people. So in the
resources owed to their people, he says. And he just told us that these are for violence prevention measures that have proven to work. Okay. Let's take that on the face of it. If it is the true case that the violence prevention measures that he's referring to have in fact worked, have had a positive effect, that is an incredibly damning indictment of the city of Chicago, because it still has one of the highest crime rates in the world, let alone the country, let alone the state. Right? There's a reason that Chicago is often referred to as Chirac. It is effectively an active war zone. There's more gang activity. There are more gangs actively working in Chicago than most other major metropolitans in this country. And this is a country that includes Los Angeles and Atlanta. To say that, there's a shitload of gangs in Chicago. Let's be clear about that. Crime, without even talking about the problem that we're trying to deal with as far as ICE deployments, there's a shitload of gangs in Chicago. And that is, in fact, part of the problem that contributes massively to the illegal immigration problem. Is many of the Chicago gangs are Mexican gangs whose business includes not only drug trafficking, but trafficking in human capital, trafficking in slaves. They're flesh marketers, right? That is the business that they are in. I've got this other clip from Pritzker. I think this is the one.
Is to give them.
that chaos to consolidate Donald Trump's power. They think they can fool us all into thinking that the way to get out of this crisis that they created is to give them free rein. Well, that plan will only work if we let it. The state of Illinois is going to use every lever at our disposal to resist this power grab and get Noam's thugs the hell out of Chicago. I'm not afraid. I am not afraid, and I won't back down.
Okay, so we're going to resist the authority of the duly elected president of the United States. And don't forget, he's been talking, or the Democrats broadly have been talking about the resistance since Donald Trump was arrested, since he was arrested too, but since he was elected the first time, right? We heard it over and over and over again. And it's psychotic, right? It's not just psychotic, though. It is a crime in and of itself. And I think, and then this one here, I believe, is the clip where Pritzker calls for military resistance. I think this is the clip. I've got so many damn clips pulled up this morning.
We also want to make sure that there isn't a violation of people's rights with, raids, for example, that are done in coordination with local law enforcement on people who are, frankly, holding down jobs and have been in this country for many, many years. We think that's improper. And in Illinois, that's not something that we would condone. There's been some talk about using other states' National Guard, red state National Guards to somehow come into a blue state and try and enforce these new Stephen Miller inspired rules. And that's just not something we're going to accept. But we also want to make sure.
Okay. He said blue state. And I apologize. That's not the clip I thought it was, but he just said blue state. Let me show you something. To reiterate a point that we've made many, many times before and will make many, many times again. He said blue state, right? But how many times do I have to say it? There are no blue states. There are only red states with blue cancer, right? This is Illinois, right? And he won his last election by a little over 500,000 votes, which, in an election where only 3.8 million votes were cast, 500,000 votes that's a substantial number of votes. But they all come from this little corner, right? You got three little spots in this little corner, Chicago, where you've got the dense population centers. The only way Democrats ever manage to win votes is they cram a bunch of poor people into shitty apartment buildings and then give them free everything. I could make a damn fortune if I could force a large population into a small location and then give them everything they wanted for free. And my profit margin was to tax all their earnings. Hey, you're poor. I got you. I've got this apartment building, and we'll deliver 3 squares every day, right? Your utilities, your cable, your internet, all included, and that'll be what do you make? $2,000 a month? Okay, be $1,000 a month rent. Look at that. You've got $1,000 disposable income every month, right? What if I cram 500 people into it? Or let's be real. We're talking about Chicago. It'd be, it'd be illegals. So 500 families. And yeah, you just pay your $1,000 a month rent. Right? And to be clear, these are some small potatoes. That's a small potatoes example. So we've heard Pritzker, we've heard guys like Johnson and them. They've been making claims that these ICE deployments, and more importantly, the National Guard being sent. It's an invasion. Republicans are conducting an invasion. We do, in fact, have caretaking laws where if you've got a bunch of terrorists firebombing federal buildings, the president is, in fact, absolutely allowed to deploy the National Guard to protect the federal buildings. And to date, that's what he's done. He has stationed National Guard at federal properties with orders to defend those properties against the rioters. Now, when we say rioters, understand what we mean is Antifa. We mean the militarized, violent arm of the Democrat Party, which, by the way, Antifa is not a domestic terrorist organization. We covered this a few times before. Antifa is a multinational organization. It's not even an organization that began in America and then grew. It is an organization that was started by communist activists in Germany and has spread all over Europe and to America. They are communist cancer metastasizing across the planet. I would almost go so far as to argue that the Democrat Party is an international terrorist organization precisely because of their direct ties with Antifa. But I don't need to go that far because we've got people like Chuck Schumer, who has dual citizenship, which means split loyalty, demanding that U.S. armed services personnel refuse orders by the duly elected president, the commander-in-chief of the U.S. Armed Forces. And that is a violation of U.S. Code 18, U.S. Code Section 2387, activities affecting armed forces generally. Whoever with intent to interfere with, impair, or influence the loyalty, morale, or discipline of the military or naval forces of the United States advises, counsels, or urges insubordination, disloyalty, mutiny, or refusal of duty shall be fined or imprisoned up to 10 years. This applies to any person, foreign or domestic, and with dual citizenship, you're basically both. Pitt Danny mentions little Dickie Durbin, same problem, right? Covers speech, writing, broadcast, or other communication, is especially aimed at propaganda designed to erode military discipline or loyalty in the ranks, does not require actual mutiny to occur. Intent to subvert is sufficient, right? Then goes on to 18 U.S. Code 2388, false reports or statements in wartime. Criminalizes making or conveying false reports or statements with intent to interfere with the U.S. Armed Forces operations or to promote the success of enemies. Specifically includes propaganda efforts during war or national emergency. Punishes foreign or domestic disinformation intended to weaken the military or aid an adversary. And then you've got, because you've got more than one Democrat clearly actively involved with provision of supply, aid, and comfort directly to Antifa, the international terrorist organization. And that list absolutely includes Kamala Harris for personally fundraising and donating to the bail fund for Antifa, right? Who is then involved with the Democrat Party, obviously, all of whom support the same positions on sanctuary cities, which should be treated. Sanctuary cities should be treated the way that the various autonomous zones should have been treated. They should be treated like an insurrection, an insurrectionist, domestic insurrectionist unit has claimed physical territory for the purpose of conducting war against the federal government of the United States of America. That's what they are. That's not an opinion that I hold. That is the legal definition of the activity. Right? But all that taken together brings us back to 18 U.S. Code 2384. And this is one that you've heard recently. Seditious conspiracy. Right? Makes it a crime for two or more persons to conspire to overthrow, oppose by force, or delay the execution of any law under the United States, or to seize property of the United States. Foreign operatives who coordinate to foment rebellion or resistance among troops can fall under this, historically used in cases where rhetoric or organization overlaps with calls to violence or mutiny. Right? And then we get into FARA. One of the greatest failures of our government to its people at present is the enormous number of dual citizenships that are held by our elected officials who hold those positions without being declared, without being registered foreign agents. Right? FARA, Foreign Agents Registration Act, 22 U.S. Code 611 and 620 through 621, requires anyone acting as a foreign agent of a foreign principal who seeks to influence U.S. public opinion or government policy to register with the DOJ. Using propaganda to influence U.S. soldiers without disclosure equals a violation. If it's part of a foreign influence operation designed to undermine military morale, the DOJ can prosecute under FARA and 2387 or 2388, right? And then finally, we've got the Espionage Act, right? That's 793 and 798 of U.S. Code 18. While primarily focused on leaking or obtaining defense information, the Espionage Act also prohibits unauthorized communication of national defense information that could harm the U.S. or aid a foreign power, including through psychological operations. Now that one, like I said, Pritzker just said that he's got people in the government that are delivering information to him that he's using to the deleterious effect against the United States. Like I said, Espionage Act, right? And then you get into executive and military regulations under things like DOD Directive 132506, handling dissident and protest activities among members of the armed forces, prohibits service members from distributing or participating in material that advocates insubordination or violence against lawful authority. Executive Order 333 and DOD Law of War Manual both recognize foreign propaganda targeting U.S. troops as a form of information warfare or psychological operations, and thus subject to counterintelligence measures. A lot of dual citizens in the Senate right now. Insurrection Act and Foreign Subversion. While the Insurrection Act, which is 10 U.S. Code 251 to 255, governs use of federal force to suppress rebellion, not propaganda per se, foreign efforts to incite rebellion could trigger it if they succeed in causing widespread violent insurrection or, local authorities are unable or unwilling to suppress such a rebellion. So you look at Brandon Johnson putting out these ICE-free zones. You look at J.B. Pritzker saying we will resist and calling for troops to refuse orders. I think that pretty clearly falls into that's not just local authorities are unable or unwilling to suppress such a rebellion. They are actively aiding and abetting it. We even have recent stories. One of the arguments that Pritzker has made is there's more violence down there in Texas. We saw an ICE facility get shot up in Texas recently. Yeah, we did. We saw yet another leftist terrorist nut job open fire on an ICE facility, killing several illegal aliens who were detainees. And of course, the news guys tried to spin it like, oh well, this was obviously MAGA because he killed the illegals, not the ICE officers. No, he shot into a labeled ICE van. He just shot into the side of the van, and what he happened to hit were the detainees and not the officers. So, that's obviously a stupid play, and that definitely makes me lean further toward Democrat as far as identifying the target. So, what you've got here is with Pritzker and Johnson, sanctuary city, ICE-free zones, right? We refuse. We give stand-down orders to our police officers. We run all these Soros-funded DAs that keep letting criminals back out on the street to stab pretty little blonde girls at subways. Right? I know that wasn't in Chicago, but the point stands. They're doing the same. They're doing the same thing all over the country. And where they're running things like ICE-free zones, resist, sanctuary cities, and publishing smartphone apps that follow citizens are using smartphone apps, and non-citizens obviously as well are using smartphone apps to track and report and disseminate the locations and movements of ICE operations. They're willfully engaged in actively participating in the conduct of an insurrection. The argument that we're seeing across our country right now is not an argument over whether the Democrats or we're not arguing about how the Democrats and Republicans feel about illegal immigration. We're not arguing about which side prefers law and order, which side prefers a secure nation, which side is America first. Excuse me, versus foreigners first. No. What we're looking at is the Democrat Party, led by the Democrats' elected officials, speaking directly to their voter bases, are actively supporting insurrection and the use of violence against federal agents engaged in the lawful conduct of enforcing the law. And what it comes down to is the Democrats do not like some of the laws that we, the people, voted for, argued about, voted for, and had signed into law through the legal process. And they think that they have lost at the soapbox, they've lost at the ballot box, and they want to skip the jury box and go straight to the cartridge box. That's what we're looking at, is Democrat politicians. Amazingly, it appears that it's essentially all Democrat politicians except for John Fetterman. I know. I didn't see that one coming. Total surprise. Are actively engaged in leading an insurrection against the United States of America today. That's what they're doing. All their appeals to National Guard troops. You should recognize that these are unlawful orders, and you should resist and refuse to follow orders. Y'all, that's a sticky wicket right there. The statement that it is unlawful to carry out an unlawful order is correct, right? And let me get ChatGPT to help us out with this one. Look up unlawful orders under UCMJ. It is an unlawful order, right? So if your commanding officer says, I want you to murder this person in cold blood, there is a very good argument to be made that you would be correct to refuse that order. Okay, so under Article 92 UCMJ, service members must obey lawful orders issued by superiors. Failure to obey a lawful order is punishable by court-martial. The duty to disobey unlawful orders, right, is separate from the UCMJ. But military law also makes it a duty, not merely a right, to refuse clearly unlawful orders. Principle derived from the Nuremberg precedent in 1946, U.S. versus Cayley, the My Lai case in 1973, and Department of Defense Law of War Manual, Section 1810. A service member is bound to obey only lawful orders. He or she must refuse to obey an order that is manifestly unlawful. Manifestly unlawful means any reasonable person would recognize the illegality, such as orders to target civilians or prisoners, commit torture or murder, engage in unconstitutional acts, for example, a coup, a rebellion, or interference with elections, right? And yes, there can end up being a lot of gray area in that, like commit torture or murder. Sergeant Major says the idea that a soldier decides an order is unlawful is absurd. The soldier is not privileged to knowingly extenuating information. I'm going to push back on you a little bit there, Dad, and I don't entirely disagree. In theory, the idea is that you have a duty to refuse obviously unlawful orders, right? So if you're in garrison at the PX as a private with, that's the personal assistant to the commanding general on the base. I know. My point is, extreme authority difference. And you're walking with the general through the PX, and he says, hey, Private, I want you to pick that baby up out of the stroller and strangle it to death. I think it will be funny. Okay. There's no chance. There's no chance that there's a reasonable justification for that order. That is a clearly unlawful order, right? In theory, the soldier has a duty to refuse to follow orders that are absurd and absolutely clearly unlawful. When you're in combat, especially in the modern 4th and 5th generational warfare context of asymmetric and amorphous warfare, the question of who is a civilian and who is not becomes super gray area. Right? Super gray area. And absolutely, if a 10-year-old boy is about to throw a hand grenade and you see him pull the pin and the lieutenant says, hey, get him. Yeah, fucking get him. Because I don't want to get blown up. That kid's dad deserves to lose a kid more than my kid deserves to lose a dad. I've had that conversation with a lot of fucking soldiers. And that's a tough one. But that's one where there's not a gray area. Right? I mean, that's a situation where you're not even making a determination personally as the soldier on the ground, as the boots on the ground, forward facing the intelligence. You're not making a decision there on whether or not you're about to do something that is or isn't lawful. Right there, what you're doing is you're choosing to live or die. Right? So the law absolutely makes room for soldiers to refuse obviously unlawful orders. But and before I went too far off that tangent, because of your comment there, Dad, the point that I was getting to is the best argument that can be made, the absolute best argument that can be made by the left in this case, is that there is some question as to whether or not the Insurrection Act is in fact legitimately going to be invoked or should legitimately be invoked in order to enforce the law in places like Chicago and Portland and Los Angeles, where the local elected authorities are refusing to enforce the law to such an extent that they are actively supporting criminal conduct, right? Because the point being that there is an argument to be made. It is not a good argument. It is a sophist's argument, but it is the argument that's being advanced. There is, in all fairness, some question that can be put before the courts. That, let's be very clear about this because clarity is important here, in no way rises to meet the bar as set out in the definition of manifestly unlawful, right? So think about what I just explained. There is some question that could be argued in a court, which means there is some chance that a judge could make the determination that the lawless activity in question at present in Chicago, Portland, etc., whether or not that rises to the level of insurrection. For a service member to be bound to obey only lawful orders and refuse to obey an order that is manifestly unlawful, like I said, means any reasonable person would recognize the illegality, such as orders to target civilians or prisoners, commit torture or murder, engage in unconstitutional activities. My point being that that whether or not the president invokes the Insurrection Act here, the Insurrection Act is very clear that if the situation rises to meet the standard as laid out by the Insurrection Act, then the president absolutely has the authority to go in and essentially take control of law enforcement in that country. The president is the commander-in-chief of the military, and he is the top executive. It is his job to execute, which is to enforce the law, right? Not to put on a black hood and swing an axe at ne'er-do-wells, but to enforce the damn law. So, and I say all that to say this. Anybody, especially elected officials, who have been urging U.S. soldiers who are in uniform and being called up to active duty from National Guard units, etc., for any of them to be suggesting that those soldiers should refuse orders and operate under the presupposition that those orders are unlawful, they do those. None of these quibbles or debates with the orders rise to the very meaningful bar of manifestly unlawful. And so what's being done by people like Pritzker and Johnson and the like, Gavin Newsom, your Chuck Schumers, any of these guys that have called for soldiers to refuse to follow orders. And they're making the assertion that they're unlawful orders. That does not rise to the level of manifestly unlawful. And that means that what they're doing is they are actively supporting insubordination, mutiny, rebellion, and revolt within the ranks of the U.S. military. That means that they are in violation of the half a dozen or dozen laws that I cited against basically interfering with the military. Mutiny propaganda, wartime falsehoods, organized rebellion, foreign influence, espionage, and interference with presidential authority. not to mention several executive and military regulations on the subject, right? These Democrats are making themselves insurrectionist enemy combatants, actively engaged in an attempt to conduct a coup because they just lost an election. That's what you're seeing. Or I'm not sure which one you're talking about there, Tom Fender. But you mean, no, I'm sure. Now I'm sure. No, I get it. You're talking about Conehead here. I get it. I wonder if he also has rotating rows of teeth and imbibes mass quantities. Well, guys, I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it there. But before I let you go, I do want you guys, if you're not already members, get over and sign into Rumble Premium so you can catch our extended content on Saturday nights. Every Saturday night, we do the deep dive. We just did a great one on rights and responsibilities. You've probably noticed Rumble's growing fast and it's not slowing down, right? Because Crowder and everybody, we've all moved our shows over to Rumble. I'm staying live on YouTube because I refuse to cede ground, but now there's Rumble Premium, and it's an easy way to upgrade your experience. With Rumble Premium, you get ad-free viewing across the platform, no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content you came for, right? Plus, premium members unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, our deep dives, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators, right? That Rumble Premium, you become a Brushfire Mind monthly subscriber, and that gets you Tim Pool and Russell Brand and Steven Crowder and Dr. Disrespect and Salty Cracker and the whole gamut, right? That one membership gets you everybody. Moreover, we like to give away a little freebie, a little wet your beak from time to time. So, of a morning when we've got a large number of viewers, if you are currently watching live on Rumble, are signed in with a free or premium account, it doesn't matter, free or premium account, you can be signed in, and you make a comment in the live chat, I will randomly give away 1 free month of premium to people who meet those criteria. But you have to be live, on air, or not on air. You have to be watching the show while I'm live on air. You have to be actively commenting in the live chat. And you have to be signed in with an account. Right? And so Jay says he's in the process of getting into Rumble Studio, and he'll jump in a couple of minutes. So I tell you what, while Jay is getting himself signed in, I'm going to throw something at you. For those of you who missed it, this is the new stinger that I set up that we're using on our philosophy shows for now, right? And honestly, for what it is, I think it feels a little overproduced for my taste. I'm not totally happy. I'm pretty happy with it generally. I'm looking for something a little different for the stinger purposes. But I want y'all to let me know what you think while we wait for Jay to tune in. And mostly I'm doing this so I can sneak away and grab a cup of coffee real quick.
In the beginning, there was only night. God spoke the word, and there was light. Better to kindle a candle's flame than curse the darkness, cold and lame. A man from the cave to the sunlight goes, blinded at first by the truth he knows. The cosmos burns as a living fire, Heraclitus sings of his dark desire. The fire refines, yet the fire consumes. It brightens the world, yet it darkly dooms. Our God is a fire consuming divine, a word like a hammer, a holy sign. But liberty's torch must be trimmed with care, else while it rages and scorches the air, it takes but the few, both fierce and free, to set brush fires of liberty. And when all is ashes, the embers fall, darkness returns with its endless thrall. Again the whisper breaks the void stark. Light one candle against the dark.
So again, I'm pretty happy with it. Y'all let me know in the comments what you think. And I've got Jason joining us. Jason is a recent acquaintance. What we meet almost not quite a year ago. And we got a thing going on tomorrow.
Yeah, we've got so in the big city of Sandersville, Georgia.
Hey, it is big city for me.
Compared to where you and I live, for sure. I think you could put our whole town in the little parking lot where we're doing this. The guy, y'all have ever seen him, his name's Lance Johnson. He runs Johnson Ministries out of Alabama. I passed. Now he does.
Your audio's cutting out. Try.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
So he runs a thing called the Crusades, where he travels around. It's normally, it's kind of like old school tent revival, no matter where it's at. He tries to bring people to the Lord, people that are struggling in life. And we've got a local business there run by a man named Shannon Anderson. It's Gimme Outdoors. He makes ever seen the Gimme Lure brand? They're actually made by him in Sandersville. So they've asked me, I'm in the process of starting up like a mobile restaurant and catering type service. They've asked me to come in and do the food for the fellowship and food hour tomorrow. So tomorrow at 6, if anybody's interested and happens to be in the area, just wants to travel and get out a little bit, we'll do fellowship at 6. Then we'll be having food at 7. We'll have a whole hog, all the sides and trimmings to go with it. And then on Friday night, we'll have an actual revival at 7 o'clock.
Nope.
Open to whoever is interested and whoever can make it.
So this is tomorrow evening.
Yeah. Tomorrow evening will be...
Yeah, 1800, not 0600.
Right, yeah. 1800 tomorrow. Fellowship. 1900 will be the meal. And then same times on Friday night. Friday will not be a meal. It'll just be the actual revival. And I don't know, it'll be pretty good. We're hoping to get a lot of people there.
All right. And yeah, so that's at Gimme Lorco on South Harris Street in Sandersville. And I'll be there running some cameras tomorrow evening, shooting a little video of Jason slinging pigs, and hopefully we get some value out of that. And I'll be handing out business cards while we're there, offering people. Might as well get a little promotion out of it.
Right.
One of these one of these cards is a good way to get on and claim one of the random free memberships that we give away from time to time, like Aaron Olson just earned. And as we all know, Aaron Olson and the tribe of Aaron Olsonites are big fans of free things. So I hope you enjoy that, my brother.
I've got a buddy. Chris met him briefly recently. He's also ex-Army. He's starting up. He's in the very beginning stage of starting up a ranch. But he's got an old battle buddy out of North Carolina that runs a place called Meadow Oak Farms. Y'all should check that out. He's online. And a guy that's going to be with me is a representative of that group in our.
And he'll be there with you tomorrow night.
Right. So if you're looking for like a good local beef supplier, grass-fed, grain-finished beef, none of this stuff you're getting out of the grocery stores, he'll be there as well. And there's a big festival in Sandersville on Saturday. Kale and Festivals parade in the morning, like 9 o'clock. A lot of vendors there. I'm part of a group that's got a loaded tea and coffee shop as well, and we'll have our mobile trailer set up in Sandersville on Saturday doing that too. So pretty
and
big.
You said that.
Yeah,
you said that's Meadow Oaks Ranch.
Yeah, or Meadow Oak Farms. Yeah.
So this is in Camden, North Carolina.
And so the guy that's with me is not the owner of this ranch that's on the way.
But he's this is one of his battle buddies. So that means this is a veteran farmer. And that's something that we're massively in support of here. I'm what you might call a half-assed veteran farmer.
Yeah.
I've got enough land to do a little farming on, but I haven't. I don't think my little vegetable patch counts yet, or my little four chicken flock. I don't think I get to quite call myself a farmer yet, but we're getting there.
Out of farming full time about 2 generations back because we found out that we like to eat more than we like to see other people eat. So yeah.
No doubt. Dude, I tell you what though. We've got a shitload of muscadines of vines growing wild out here, but they're growing wild all the way up the tree into the can. So that's where all the berries are, all the muscadines are. So it's not like I could just walk through and with a basket and harvest muscadines. Currently, now I can walk down the path and I can grab a vine and give it a yank. Right? I've done this a couple times. Go out in the woods, throw out a tarp, give one of them vines a good hard yank, and then dump them, and I'll get a basket of berries just fall out of the sky, which is pretty cool. But I've been clearing and cutting down stuff back there. And Fee has got it in her head that I'm going to build some racks and we're going to cultivate these muscadines. If we can cultivate and actually get the vines that we've got growing wild back there under control enough that we can access them easily, I might just have to get into the business of selling muscadines to the local wineries because, I mean, a shitload of established old vines with, yeah.
And they make jelly too.
They do. But I'm more interested in selling the raw fruit than doing the work of processing it into an end product.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but that's you got anything you want to close with, brother?
No, I think that was good, man. I appreciate the little cameo option here.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure to have you on. So I'm gonna let you go now and close this out. So for the rest of you guys, I want to say thanks for watching this morning. Hopefully we'll have Mario back on tomorrow. And for the rest of it, we love you and we will see you tomorrow.